James Gunn has been hard at work with Superman Legacy. Right before all the strikes started, you were getting these huge actor announcements, seemingly like every week, well, almost like at one point every few days. We got like all kinds of announcements, like Eddie Gattegi as Mr. Terrific. I forget who they said is going to play Hawkgirl. Forgetting her name. Um,
Isabella Merced, I
is it
believe, if that's how you pronounce it. I
Marquette?
might be pronouncing
Oh
it
no, I think it's yeah, Isabella Marquette. So,
Merced,
and
okay.
I mean, she's been in a bunch of like other like projects that I've seen. I can't pinpoint her other stuff, but I've definitely seen her in a few things. I think wasn't she in like the last uh Michael Bay Transformers movie? Or I think she was.
That's entirely possible.
That's I feel like that was her. I might be mistaking her for somebody else. But I mean, amongst the announcements, of course, we all said Nathan Fillion, who's a longtime James Gunn collaborator. He's going to be playing the Guy Gardner version of Green Lantern, and it looks like he's not going to be just there to get killed off. So. There's a lot of speculation that's been happening in the weeks and months since those announcements happened, with the strikes basically shutting all of that down. Now that the writer strike is over, and hopefully soon the actor strike is going to be over, we may get back to getting more of these announcements. So I wanted to kind of ask you, like, where do we stand? There's been a bunch of like posting on social media, on threads. James Gunn keeps posting artwork. Elizabeth Tulloch from plays Lois Lane on Superman and Lois posted in response to one of those pieces of artwork, like, hey, this is great inspiration for Lois Lane for myself in my show. Like, purple's her color, as the fans told her. And James Gunn then responded that, yeah, I mean, I use a bunch of this artwork in my pitch for Superman Legacy, regarding like how maybe he imagines Superman and Lois Lane being portrayed. Of course, we know that the artwork they shared at the DCU slate announcement earlier. Was it earlier this year or late last year? I'm forgetting exactly which month that was put out, but
Yeah, I think it was late last year, if I remember correctly.
yeah, and then that's announcement when they talked about Superman Legacy. They don't have any official artwork for it yet, but they kind of used some Superman artwork from All Star Superman. So, where do we stand with this movie right now? All that speculation? What are you thinking?
I just kind of wonder. I mean, I'm intrigued that I kind of really like that newer stuff is also being used as inspiration because it's like obviously All Star Superman that is considered one of the greatest Superman stories of all time. Like
Yeah.
everybody loves All Star Superman. It's amazing. Um, but I do like how because the thing that James Gunn and Bitsy Tulloch were referencing was Lois Lane Back at the Planet Part 1 in DC Rebirth. How they were kind of trying to find their continuity at the time. And this version of Lois Lane, I believe it was the post crisis, pre New 52 version, she gets back to work at the Daily Planet. It was a very good comic. I like how James Gunn isn't using just the most popular stories for Superman Legacy. I really like that. Kind of like how Matt Reeves
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
use like Dark Knight Returns yet again as inspiration for the Batman. Like Batman Ego by Darwin Cook was a big inspiration, which was like really interesting because
Yeah.
nobody really mentions that story a lot. So I really like that. I'm on the fence about the supporting characters that are included. It's feels like it's taking away from Superman's story, but I do wonder if like the supporting characters are being set up for possible spin-off films. Well, Guy Gardner, is that going to lead into Lanterns? Is he going to be the main
But
character?
he did mention
So,
that it's going to be connected to the Lantern Show, but the Lantern Show is focused on John Stewart and why am I blanking on the other one?
Hal
Hal
Jordan.
Jordan. Hal Jordan. Of course.
So,
Yeah, it's going to be focused on the two most popular lanterns, primarily like a space buddy cop sort of a action adventure. Oh, actually, not in
right,
space. Apparently, it takes place mostly on Earth. So,
probably for
but what's
budget reasons.
interesting though is like that all three of these versions of the lanterns are supposedly going to exist at the same time,
Yeah.
and on Earth, at least again, like based on what we know so far, that's I can only imagine where that's gonna how that's gonna make it. While it's gonna
Yeah.
make it feel like a lived-in universe from day one, which could be a good thing. Like, that's why we love Star Wars. That's why the first Star Wars movie was such a big phenomenon, because not only did it look so fantastic and the world building was amazing, it looked like a world that felt feasible, like tangible. Like it didn't feel like this shiny Hollywood kind of a set that you were like always looking at. It felt like a world that you could be a part of. It felt like a world that the people who existed in it had lived in it, and really like it had kind of aged over time. And that's maybe the what they're going for here. But like you said, I do worry, are they going to start loading up with too many characters from the get-go, which in a comic book world that you can get away with, even in the animated like the Justice League Unlimited series, I think you can get away with that because you're sort of doing it like 30 minutes at a time, and or even it's like each episode was like 20 minutes without commercials, and you are looking at a situation where every episode doesn't have to kind of tie into a larger narrative. Whereas
Right.
here, you could certainly look at a very crowded field from day one that might restrict them in some ways. Also, I worry a little bit about how it's going to take some narrative focus, like you said, away from the main characters of the movie. Though I do trust that, much like what Matt Reeves did with Batman, the Batman, you had like Falcone in there, you had the Penguin in there, you had like references to the Court of Owls, and like maybe even like Hush, or like you did they mentioned the whole Arkham's and the Veins situation, like the history. So there was so much that they laid the groundwork for, and not, I mean, of course, Catwoman. So but not all, and all of those had their places in the story. That not everything was the primary focus. It wasn't a Spider-Man 3 situation where three main villains were all coming gunning for Spider-Man. Whereas, like even in the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, like you had like in the Dark Knight or in the Batman Begins or even the Dark Knight Rises, in each of those movies they had multiple comic book Batman villains around doing various things. Didn't mean that all of them were the main antagonist. So I have some hope that, like, yeah, I mean, of course, there's hopes and dreams, but also concerns, and
Right.
potential nightmares to think about. But with James Gunn being the storyteller that he is, I would put my trust in him. What do you think?
I think I think I just in terms of a lot of superhero stuff nowadays, I have a lot of cautious optimism, I guess you could say, where I like really want to be excited, but I have been kind of burnt out from superhero movies. I still love them and I still watch them, of course. But it's just kind of in the back of my head that's like, okay, when are they going to start trying new stuff? And I feel like sometimes like James Gunn is kind of making the same mistakes as the previous holder of the DCEU. So there is that.
The previous
Um,
holders, maybe, because there were
Holders,
so
yeah,
many
multiple,
cooks in the
yeah,
kitchen on that one.
revolving
Yeah,
door of people.
yeah.
Um, so I hope that I because he's it looks like he is a big enough fan of Superman. He's like, while it is there's a lot of pros and cons in terms of like constantly talking with the fans because he's kind of been backpedaling in terms of information on when the DCU starts. So it's entirely possible that he might be saying too much, but then he might be saying too little. So who knows? But I feel like he is a big enough fan, and being a big enough fan, he knows what the fans want, and he wants to like give them as much information because I think he's just really excited about
Mhm.
doing all of this because he's a fan. He's a fan at heart and wants us to feel okay about his new regime, about Superman Legacy, about Creature Commandos in terms of the first two, and then eventually later on with Supergirl, Swamp Thing, Lanterns, Waller, whatever Peacemaker is going to be. So you have all of that. So it's I really want to be excited more, but I am still like reasonably excited because it's like I think he could bring a lot. And the biggest thing for me was when David Corn Sweat was officially cast as Superman because that dude has been a fan cast for Superman for a good long while, mainly because of his looks similar to Henry Cavill, but I think he's a good enough actor. He kind of has the boyish charm that Clark Kent is known for, but also could have the authoritative stance of Superman. And I think he could do a really good job. So that was like kind of the big thing. He's like, okay, he is really listening to the fans because
Yeah,
that has been a fan cast for a good long while. So there is a cautious optimism there, but
yeah.
I do, I think I believe in James Gunn a little bit a little bit more each day, despite the fact that he might be talking a little bit too much on Threads.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, James Gunn has been prone to oversharing over the last year or so since he signed up for the DC Studios job because he's run into some, not so pleasant conversations with fans who have been, of course, asking questions that maybe he has responded to, and maybe they didn't like the answer, but also sometimes he's given information that has felt contradictory. But yeah, it does feel like there's a lot going on in Superman Legacy. It could be distracting. It could not be distracting. James Gunn, we know, is very good at working with large cast of characters with his Guardians of the Galaxy movies, the Suicide Squad. So he's certainly capable of keeping all his jigsaw pieces in order and still, putting together the whole puzzle and making something that is not only cohesive but also really, emotionally moving and visually a spectacle. So, guys, let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Are we starting to get to a point where we should start to be maybe a little concerned about just how crowded the universe of the new DC is going to feel like from day one? Or do you trust that James Gunn is going to get it right? Let us know in the comments below, and of course, like and subscribe for more content like this.